the Ford Ranger. This particular example is a 2005 Edge trim. The Edge was pretty much one of the many trims that you could get in the Ford Ranger. There was the base XL, then the XLT, the Edge, STX, then the FX4. The Edge basically gave you the 4x4 suspension. As you can see, those torsion bars down there. So this has a slightly lifted ride. This is a good example of basically a knockoff pre-runner or pre-comer, whatever name you want to call the Toyota Tacoma variant. This one happens to have that gorgeous blue color. Now, besides the suspension upgrades, there's really not much else to this thing. You do get those fender flares. Still has the steel wheels, fog lights, and this mesh grille, which the standard Rangers did not come with. This is the second generation of the Ranger, which has been around since '93. In '95, it got a big upgrade, mainly the interior, which lived up to 2011. So from '95 to 2011, the interior was the same. Powertrains have changed somewhat, but all the way up to 2011, very little has changed otherwise. This Ranger is equipped with the 3-liter Vulcan V6 engine, and this powertrain was used under the hoods of many Fords throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Examples like the Aerostar, the Ford Taurus, I think even the Ford Tempo. Really a boat anchor in terms of its power figures, but it's solid and reliable otherwise. This interior, identical to a 1995. You'll just see some slight differences, such as the radio, the seats, and whatnot, but otherwise everything has remained the same. The Edge didn't get any more special seats than, say, for example, an XLT or an XL. Even has a vinyl floor, so it's quite bare bones. I guess you do have that radio with the CD and cassette. Even the steering wheel isn't upgraded. It just has what's called the urethane steering wheel, so it's not even leather wrapped. Someone stitched on this leather wrapped steering wheel. Actually looks pretty good. But yeah, 1995 interior went all the way up to 2011, and to be honest, it's not bad. The quality is actually pretty good. This is a padded dashboard. I have never seen one of these cracked or broken. No, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but I personally have never seen one. This interior or dashboard was also used in the 95 to 01 Explorer or the 05 Sport Track. It is surprising just how much better this interior is. In my opinion, it's better than the interiors to all the other small pickup trucks. Maybe not the Tacoma. It's about an even split between this and the Tacoma, but you compare a Chevy S10, like an S10 wouldn't even have a dashboard anymore. Like, it would have just been a Ritz cracker and chunks missing, or it just would have been warped like bacon. The only flaw I've seen in this interior is just this bezel around the radio, and it's not really the fault of the truck, it's the fault of the drivers or the owners. When they want to replace the radio, pull it out or whatever, they fail to see that there's 2 screws under here, so they end up unclipping this thing and breaking the plastic down here. Otherwise, I've seen a couple of these over here loose there, but this is a crank window truck, so there's really no reason for anyone to go back there. But yeah, this is quite bare bones. There's really not much more to say in here. This one is the Super Cab, which means it's an extended cab. It's also got these 2 jump seats. They fold up and stow away. Not a place for an adult to sit. I'm not going to sit there because my ass will probably break it. Now let's hear this thing. Has a 3,000 RPM rev limit in park. The 3-liter Vulcan, very good engine. I think it only makes like 150 horsepower, 160, somewhere around there. You could also get the 4-liter single overhead cam V6 or SOC engine. While they did make quite a bit more power, I think around 210, those had an issue with the timing chains, and they were a nightmare. Ford turned a regular pushrod engine into a single overhead cam engine, and that involved, in this case, a rear timing chain, or 2 rear timing chains. So it was a nightmare because it was usually the rear chains that started rattling. There was also the base 2.3 four-cylinder. It was also a very good engine, about as reliable or more reliable than this. And not too much of a difference in horsepower. This just kind of beats the four-cylinder in the torque department. These Vulcans were very reliable. They were not fussy. The system. There were issues here and there with the head gaskets, but that was at the fault of the owners basically topping off the coolant with hose water, which eventually rusts the system. All Rangers in this year came with a 5-speed automatic. I think it was called the 5R55E. It's just a variant of the same transmission used in, for example, the Lincoln LS and whatnot. But at least with this one, you have a dipstick, so you can actually service it. The other choice was a 5-speed manual transmission. It was a Mazda-derived transmission that I think it's been around since the late 80s or early 90s. It's a bed, and as you saw, the tailgate is not damp. That still wasn't a thing yet with anybody. This is a 6-foot long bed. I think the long bed is 7 feet, and that could only be had in the standard cab Rangers. That was not an option on the super cabs like this one. Floor this. You're gonna see how short second gear is. You saw that? Second gear was so short. It's actually not bad, it being geared that way. Just does a good job keeping the revs up. Gentlier than before. Yeah, that was a bit more gently than the first time, but you can see how much shorter second gear is. But she gets up and goes. You know, this little 3-liter has no problem scooting out of the way. It's not fast, but it's not horrible. You know, between all the engines, you know, I would go between either this or the 2.3. You know, if I don't know anything about the maintenance or if the timing chains haven't been done in the 4-liter, I'd be kind of spooked in owning one, or the 4-liter. Now, in terms of the way they drive, again, this is an old school truck, so don't expect refinement out of this. This with the lifted suspension, or in other words, with the torsion bar suspension, the regular base suspension has the coil springs up in the front. It does have a more substantial feel to it, but it will be a little bit more choppy. It's compliant enough, you know, maybe it's not something that, you know, I would want to drive across the country in, but that's just me. Steering feel is not that bad. You know, these have a rack and pinion setup, so it's direct. Any little nudge and the thing moves. You know, there's no dead spots. You know, if you're accustomed to driving an F-150 or Silverado and then you go down to this, you'll be like, what the hell am I driving? Just the refinement differences is just massive. If you're not someone that's fussy about having all the features and gizmos and buttons and sport modes and all of that bougie stuff, these won't disappoint at all. Just expect all the bare bone necessities when it comes to these. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next car that I'll have in the pipeline, which I have no idea what that is yet. So see y'all later.